In Pedal Steel Licks Volume 1, we talked about a few ways we can get a guitar sounding like a pedal steel. We're going to use a lot of those same principles. We talked about mechanically bending the strings, which we don't have any bends in this pass that we're doing. But we also talked about how pedal steel players have a volume pedal. So we're going to mimic that with our volume knob here. If you have a Telecaster or Telecaster type guitar, you can do it with our pinky. Some other guitar models you can do that as well. If not, you could have a volume pedal, and you could be doing it with a volume pedal like a pedal steel player actually would. And then we talked about letting multiple strings ring out and kind of overlap instead of cutting them off right away before you hit the next note. So that's another way we can mimic pedal steel. And we're going to be talking about vibrato and the use of kind of heavy vibrato to mimic a bar kind of going back and forth on the top of a pedal steel. These intervals that we're going to use are called sixths, and we're also using double stops. Double stops is where we play two strings at the same time. In this case, we're really, for most of this run, we're using the G and the high E string. And then we're going to start using the D and the B string later on. And so it's called double stops when we use more than one string at once. And then the intervals are called sixths. And if any of that confuses you, for right now, we're just going to get our fingers on this in the key of A, like we showed you in the jam along video. But then we'll demonstrate it in the key of C, D, and G. And at the very end, we'll have a whole tutorial that's going to talk about the music theory behind why these are called sixths and how we can relate that back to these different keys that we'd like to play this progression in. All right, so like I say, for now, let's get our fingers on this in the key of A. So we're going to start up here, and we're going to swell in. We're actually going to do a swell on all of these for a little while. So we've got 18 of G and 17 of high E, and I'm muting this B string, so my volume's all the way up. The tip of the flesh of my middle finger is also muting the D string in case I nick that, but I'm going to aim my pick at the G through the high E string, and it's okay if it rakes just a little bit. You don't want it too pronounced, but it's okay if you hear just a little raking in there. And then I like to take my pinky, have the volume all the way up, and roll it back just about, I don't know, about 40%. And then pick it and swell it in. Then we're going to go down to the next one and swell that one in. So as I'm moving this left hand, my pinky's rolling back about 40%, and then I'm going to go 16 and 16. Then 14 and 14. Then 13 and 12. This is all tabbed out beneath the video player at sixstringcountry.com and all the keys that we're going to talk about. So pull those up, that will help a lot. And now we're going to go 11 and 10. 11 of G, 10 of high E. Then 9 and 9. 7 and 7. 6 and 5. 4 and 4. 2 and 2. Now we're going to jump down to the D and the B string. 6 of D. 5 of B. Now, if I kind of talk through my left hand here, I've got my thumb muting the low E string. I've got the tip of my middle finger muting the A string. Then I've got the 6th fret of D ringing out. G is muted by my middle finger. I've got the 5th fret of B ringing out. And the high E string is muted by my pointer finger. A lot of this, getting this to sound the right way, is muting the strings that you don't want so you can pick it with your pick here with the right intensity. Swell it in, get a nice vibrato going, nice pretty heavy vibrato. All right, and mute the strings that you don't want. You don't want to have to Mickey Mouse pick it and just pick it really soft because you're not going to get the tone that you're looking for. Okay, so where do we leave off there? We're on 6 of D and 5 of B, then we're going to go 4 and 3, then up to 7 and 7, and then we're going to go up to 9 and 9, and then 11 and 10. Let's do just that much, nice and slow. 2 and 3 and go. right? The next thing we have is this little chord. This is another way we can mimic a pedal steel because their strings are tuned a little bit differently than guitar, so sometimes you get these nice color notes. Like the band's playing a D chord. A D, straight D triad would be this, but we're adding in this B note, which is a 6, making it a D6, major 6, okay? So we're going 11, 12, 10 on G, B, and high E, and we're going to swell that in. Now we're going to take a break from the swells for just a second and do a little run here. Okay, so we just swelled this in. Now we're going to go 14 to B, 12 of high E, then 15 and 14 of B and high E. One more time. Then up to 17 and 16. Then 19 and 17. Then back to 15 and 14. Now we're going to swell in the 9th fret of B and the 10th fret of high E. And then we're going to go all the way up to the 14th fret of high E. And you can either go all the way up with your middle finger there, or you can use a new finger, your ring finger. Just get the 14th fret of high E. Then another color chord. That's 13, 14, 12, 13, 14, 12. Swell it in. Now go all the way up to 16. And now we're doing these 6th double stops again on the 14th fret of G and high E. Up to 17 on just high E. 16 on G and high E. And then all the way up to 19, just high E, and then the same double stop that we started with on 18 of G and 17 of high E. All right, so that's how we play this run in the key of A. Next, we're going to demonstrate the same progression. We're going to make a couple slight adjustments along the way, but again, each key is all tabbed out beneath the video player at sixstringcountry.com. We're going to play through it in C, D, and G, and then we're going to explain the theory behind how this all kind of works together in the final tutorial. So you've just seen this progression played in C, D, and G, in addition to what we learned it in, which is the key of A. So in this tutorial, I don't want to go over all those new keys kind of painstakingly slowly like we did in the key of A. You've got your fingers on it, you've got the resources you need, you've got tabs beneath the video player, sixstringcountry.com, and you've got those jam-along videos that you should be able to figure those out. It's the same movements with our fingers, basically. We're just shuffling things around a little bit. But in this tutorial, I'd like to talk about the double stops that we're using for most of the tutorial, which are sixths, and then we use some thirds as well. and how we can relate those back to a scale to figure out how to play stuff like this in any key that we want. Okay, so let's take a look at this first descending riff, the key of A. Let's just go that far. Let's start with this first one. The band's playing an A chord here, so that, you know, it's an A chord. This is just two of the notes from the A chord. And if we wanted to name those notes, we'd have a C sharp and an A note, a C sharp and an A. It's a double stop, that's what we call it anytime we play more than one note at the same time. And it's a sixth because the interval between the C sharp note and the A note, this is just another way to play that, a couple octaves lower. Here's a C sharp note, just like this. And here's an A note, just like this. I'm just playing it a couple octaves lower because it's going to be a little easier for us to understand, all right? So this is the same double stop. C sharp note, A note. And we're going to need to know what context we're in. We're in the key of A, which we know, right? So if we play an A scale, an A diatonic major scale, we've got that. If we say this is, if we start with this as 1, let's do it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So when we call this a sixth between the C sharp and the A, we're talking about those two notes strictly in relationship to themselves. And this is actually, I'm going to take it a step further here, okay? This is called a minor sixth interval. Why is that? Because let's find out if this is 1, if this is the first note, the C sharp, what's the fifth? We know that's the fifth, right? Or we could count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is the fifth. And then how far away is that A note? Well, this note is the same as this note, right? So why don't we call it that? So that's a fifth. It's a perfect fifth is what that's called. And this A note is only a half step away. Only one half step. That makes it a minor sixth. If it was a whole step away, we'd have the major sixth interval, which would be that. But that's not what we're playing here. This is a minor sixth interval. All of these are sixths. Some of them are major, some of them are minor. Let's take the next one. All right, let's name these notes. Here we have a B note, here we have a G sharp. Let's find that somewhere else a little lower on the neck. Here's a B, here's a G sharp. So if we play an A major scale again, but we called this B the 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right? That's why we call this interval a sixth. And let's see if this is major or minor. If this is 1, the perfect fifth is that, right? We've got a perfect fifth of an F sharp note. And so what's the interval from this F sharp to the G sharp? Is it a half step or a whole step? Well, another way to play this note is right here. So we can see if this is the perfect fifth, to get up to the sixth, we have a half step and another half step, making it a whole step, which means the interval, strictly talking about this B to this G sharp note, or this B to this G sharp note, same note, is a major sixth interval. Okay, so all of these are sixths. Even when we go over to these two strings, those are all sixths. So what are we doing with these sixths? How can we relate this back to the A major scale if we want to figure out how to play this in other keys? Well, we're starting here on this note, right? Let's look at position 6 diatonic in the key of A. All right, here's the line. Does that sound like this? We're just walking right down the scale. If we wanted to keep going, we could keep right on going. That's the kind of melody line that we're playing on these high strings. Let's look at the other notes on the G string. If we just walked those down, it would be. Right? Let's play it a different way. We just got done playing this scale, right? We could go. All this is doing with these intervals, is giving us a really pretty and nice way to harmonize all the way down that A scale in a kind of an organized fashion here. It's just instead of playing horizontally this way, we're just taking that A scale down the fretboard, and we're doing it both on the G string and the A string. So how do we play this in other keys then? Well, we can find where that position 6 diatonic is if we want to play in the key of C. Let's go right to the key of G. It'll just be easier to visualize. So key of G, diatonic, position 6. All right, so the melody is going to be and the counter melody is all right. So just like before, we're going to pick our starting points. Instead of there and there, we're going to start here and here. And if you got a piece of paper out and you scribbled a fretboard on there, you could draw out how instead of going like that, we're going to go. This is all just, always comes back to knowing what the names of these fret and string combinations are. We're just walking this scale down on the high E string and on the G string at the same time. Right? And it's the same in all the keys. When we get to the key of C, sometimes we have to make adjustments due to octave. Because we get too low, we run out of frets. If we're in the key of C, that's that position 6 diatonics. We're going to start here, and we're going to walk it down. But now, to make it musical, we could go here, but to make it musical, that's after 4, so we're going to hop right up here, which is just an octave on top of this, right? So it's the same pattern. It's the same way we're going to play it on the fretboard. We're just playing it 12 frets up. We're going to keep going down. Then we got. Okay. So you get the idea. We're just walking that scale down on those two strings together, and this is just giving us a nice fingering that's laid out on the fretboard in a way that lets us play that really nice and melodically. All right, so let's get back to the key of A for a moment and talk about what we're doing when we start doing this. So we went. So those are different kinds of intervals. It's still double stops, but we're not on the high E and the G string. Now we're on the high E and the B string. So what are they? Well, let's look at them. Let's look at this one. This is 15th fret, 14th fret. Let's name it D to F sharp. Let's find it a little lower to make it easier to work with. D, F sharp. And we're in the key of A, right? So that's the key of A diatonic scale. But let's say this is 1, because remember when we're talking about intervals, we're talking about the relationship from this note to this note. So we're not talking about what this note is in relationship to A. When we're talking about intervals, this D note becomes the first piece of the interval. So if the D note is the first note of the interval, 1, that's a D, 1, 2, 3. And if it's 2 whole steps away, that's 1 whole step, that's 2 whole steps, that's a major third. If it was a step and a half away, or a 1 whole step and 1/2 step, that would be a minor third. But it's not. It's 1 whole step, 2 whole steps. So it's a major third. Let's look at one more. Another one that we have in the A progression is this. This is a C sharp note and an E note. So get it down here where it's a little easier to look at. C sharp A, sorry, C sharp E, right? So if we did the diatonic scale, if this was note 1 of the interval, 1, 2, 3, so it's a third, is it major or minor? Well, is this a whole step or a half step? That's only a half step, and then here to here, another way to play this note is here, so we're going, that's the distance from this C sharp to this E. It is a third, we know that, but it's only a minor third because we have one whole step, which is this, and one half step, which is this. So all of these double stops are thirds. We're just kind of moving up and down the scale using thirds, just like we did with sixths. But some of them are major and some of them are minor, depending on the relationship specifically between the two notes that we're playing. So hopefully that just introduces you to the concept of using intervals and double stops. Sixths and thirds are two really popular ones that we use when we play country guitar all the time, and can be really handy when we're trying to learn some of these pedal steel riffs.